Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement, and I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And that's right, folks, we've got part 2 of our show, Why Savers Need Everything Under One Roof. And this is going to be a great show, folks. Hope you're enjoying this. And today, last week anyway, we got into a lot of the investments and why diversification is important, why people need to have everything under one roof. Today, we're going to get into also this more extensive look at why you want to have everything under one roof, but more importantly, some of the articles now, a lot of the naysayers out there are now starting to agree with what we've said forever, that there's a lot of reasons you should have all those eggs under one roof. And it is interesting because that is the old saying. Well, I've always been told don't have all your eggs in one basket. But what we found is through taxes, through risk, through old age, through the fear of nursing homes, through all these complicated tax laws. That used to be the case. In fact, I often talked about my grandfather, Bill Hardin, who in 1978 retired with his pension and Social Security. He didn't have to worry about any of this stuff. He didn't have any eggs in any baskets because he didn't need them. He didn't need a financial advisor, didn't need a game plan. But folks, we are in the 21st century, and that's why at Tony Walker Financial, our specialty is retirement planning. This is all we do, and we're really good at it. So right now, what we're going to do, we're going to get into some reasons and some articles out there where other pundits are saying you need everything under one roof to have a worry-free retirement. And to help us, come on back in here, Wes, my favorite nephew and fellow fiduciary, Mr. Wes Walker. I've been looking forward to part 2. Thank you so much for helping out with part 1. That was more of the investment, 3 personalities of money. I think what we're going to get into now is the practicality of what you've seen now that you've been here 5 years, and these saver clients and why they need to strongly consider having everything under one roof.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right. So first of all, let's talk about the idea of a couple of these articles. I'll just quote through a few of them, folks, and maybe Aaron or Derek, if you don't mind putting these up full screen. This one came out in Forbes back in 2016. 2015. 5 reasons you should consolidate your retirement accounts. Here's another one. Oh, let's see. This one is Investopedia, Reasons to Consolidate Retirement Accounts. Let me see if it gets into some of that. Yeah, and I agree with this one. We'll talk about estates in a minute and people dying and what the beneficiaries are faced with. Consolidating accounts, making it easier for beneficiaries to direct estate assets. It also mentions fewer fees, less maintenance. Let's see what else they mention in here. Streamline for beneficiaries. Here's another article talking about this. Kiplinger, consolidate your retirement accounts, but be careful. So I think what they're talking about is you start meshing all these together. We've seen this when we start moving accounts over. Man, there can be some taxes galore when you start moving it over. And then back to our last one, and I think this is a reason to consolidate. It doesn't say this is the reason. This ties into last week's show. By the way, folks, all of our shows are on YouTube, and if it's the radio show, you can go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just scroll down, and you'll see all of our past radio shows. But this one says, what we covered last week, 94% of U.S. fund managers over the last 20 years have underperformed the S&P 500, proving once again, if you're a saver out there, folks, we're not out here trying to beat the market. We're trying to get things consolidated and make it easier for you. So first and foremost, Wes, I guess I'd just like your thoughts on maybe 1 or 2 things you've noticed now that you've been here and you're talking to more and more clients of why it is so important to get all those eggs under one roof.
So it's funny, most of my friends that I talk with that are my age will ask what I do for work. Once I tell them, the response that I get a lot of times is, oh, so you work with a bunch of rich old men all day? Is that what it is? It's funny. It's not necessarily any denomination of people that have a certain amount of money. And a lot of times it's actually widows not widowers, not men who are in retirement without their spouses. Obviously, we know a lot of times it is the man who goes first. So going back to what our topic of today is that a lot of times to have your assets under one roof with someone you can trust proves to be a lot better situation than if you had all these eggs spread out over many different baskets all over the place. Because when someone dies, it does make it a lot easier to consolidate and continue on with the same game plan that you had prior. I'm sure Mandy Houchins could speak to this. We had, 50-something death claims last year?
Yeah.
So in order to keep all these things together at that time, if there is a death claim or someone does pass, it makes a lot of sense to have those assets with someone you can trust and all under one roof.
So there's one issue, and I would agree with these articles, the issue of beneficiaries, just knowing where everything's located, how easy is it going to be for them to transition and move those assets over. I think the biggest issue that's become more and more complicated that my granddad never even had to consider, never, I mean this, I remember watching his life play out, was taxes. I mean, number one, as we record this show in July of 2024, these tax laws, as you know, if you watch the show, expire at the end of 2025. We don't know what they're going to do. If they don't do anything, it was funny, yesterday somebody said, well, is that just something you think? I said, no, this is the law. If they don't do anything, it will go back to the 2017 rates, which are higher. Now, they could lower them. I don't know. Could raise them. I don't know that either. But the point is, my granddad never worried about all this stuff. So if you're out there, if you're like most people we meet, if you've got a tax-infested 401k, IRA, 403b, again, you've got what I call in there a tax tumor. And if you don't consolidate those assets, let's use an example. Let's say somebody's coming up on their minimum distribution age of 73.
That's what I was going to bring up, exactly.
And they've got 2 other IRAs with other brokers. And let's say they don't want to move them over to us. They think we're being greedy or something. You know, it's not that we need the business. What we're worried about is if we don't know what those other 2 brokers are doing in terms of taking out of their IRAs to meet the minimum distributions, let's say we've got 2 IRAs with the same person, and we all goof up accidentally because we don't know what the other hand's doing, then the poor client is going to have some stiff penalties. And from a planning standpoint, how do we know if we want to do a Roth conversion or QCDs or all these things that we offer as free services with our tax-certified people on staff because we don't really know what the other broker or money manager is doing?
Exactly. And I would even backing up a little bit, this is a topic that gives so much confusion to so many people. What is this required minimum distribution? The nuts and bolts is at age 73, you're required to take out a certain percentage of your money that you have in qualified assets. It just means pre-tax assets, 401ks, IRAs, 457 plans, all those things. And if you have them spread out amongst 3 or 4 different advisors, the left hand doesn't talk to the right and you might miss one of these RMD payments. So if we have it all under one roof, we can orchestrate it seamlessly so that they get that RMD out to them and don't have to worry about paying up on those stiff penalties. An interesting example, we'll see a lot of times where somebody may just be drawing on a mailbox money annuity, and you add that to their other IRAs and just the distribution, their annual income that'll last for the rest of their life that they get from that annuity, more than covers the RMD, so we can leave the other accounts to grow. But if you've got it under one roof, you can make decisions like that and execute them, whereas if it's spread out, it'd be really hard to coordinate all that.
Yeah, we had a client in yesterday. We have 30 to 40 appointments a week, but the client, the very same thing happened. Coming up on the RMD, they had an annuity. Actually, they had already started their mailbox money. It was kind of interesting. I was reviewing their situation, and they said, well, what do you do about this Schwab account over here? Because they just assumed we were going to have to start taking money out of that too because they were 73. I said, no, this is covering it. So your point is correct. That in that case, the mailbox money covered it. They didn't really want to take any money out of Schwab. They didn't need it, so we could let that continue to grow. And I think in our time remaining, Wes, we're trying to pick out 3 or 4 things. Here's the thing that's starting to come up, a little disturbing. We have a couple. One of them is starting to progressively suffer from dementia or health issues, and it even gets worse if that one particular person of that couple happens to handle the finances. So a lot of times when I'll ask this question, if I have husband and wife, and let's be stereotypical, let's say the husband's always handled the finances, pretty good at it, let's say, does the investment, maybe the wife has handled the household income expenses, everything's going well. I'll look at the wife. I don't look at the husband when I ask this question. I'll look at her intently and I'll say, what are you going to do? Not will you maybe do. What are you going to do? And I don't say if. When something happens to your husband, either he dies or he becomes unable to do this. And a lot of times they've never thought of that. Now, the husband's not allowed to talk. I just keep looking at her, and she said, and usually she'll say, I have no idea.
Right.
So, folks, that could be you out there. You may be sitting there and maybe one or neither of you really understands much, but you've kind of been making it. You've been getting by. But just old age in general, you're going to keep running around chasing all these CDs down at the bank. Are you going to be able to do your own RMDs or do these calculations? And worse yet, are you going to be possibly with a firm that doesn't have a business continuation plan in place? Speak to that, Wes, how the pains I've gone through to make sure that when something happens to me, what we've done to keep this thing rolling long after Tony Walker can't operate here.
Well, you put together a great business continuation plan. Unfortunately, I don't take it all over and inherit everything. But
well, you never know. It might be like Gran Torino. Well, I might surprise you, and you show up at the will reading, and
on
all goes to my favorite nephew, Wes. Go ahead.
At any rate, though, you have put together a good business continuation plan. All of the game plans that we've orchestrated for our clients don't change upon your death. So there's not some contingency where, all the plans shift all of a sudden because Tony Walker's out of the picture. No, everything stays the same. We just follow the same written game plan that you've already put together for the client, and it should be an easy, seamless transition. What I would say is that in that same situation we were talking about, when something, inevitably does happen to one of the two spouses, the worst case scenario is to be with an advisor or a firm that you can't really trust. So we are fiduciaries. I think that's the key word. We're legally obligated to act in the client's best interest. If you, had left your spouse to the whims of someone who just wanted to sell more products, they were maybe a little financially unsophisticated, the spouse, you could be really in some deep water. So I think that's the key. A lot of our clients come to us because they want someone to help that spouse and act in their best interest if they were to pass.
Well said. So look, we're going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to finish up on the top 10 reasons why you're going to want all those eggs under one roof. I'm Tony Walker with the WorryFree Retirement. We'll be right back. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Today's Better Business Bureau Spotlight comes to us from John. Tony and his staff are friendly, helpful, and professional. They truly seem to care for their clients. I highly recommend Tony Walker Financial. For more information, visit TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255.
Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. We care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 2,000 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement, and I've really enjoyed this particular show. Of course, we're in part 2 of why savers need to consider putting everything under one roof. Speaking of having everything under one roof and just the wisdom that comes with the understanding that we've done this so long and why savers might want to consider doing this before we get to our next 5. John Bogle, we'll throw this up again. Love this book. It's actually been a while since I've drugged this thing out. We've been talking about John Bogle so much, but I want you to listen to something he says here. Remember, folks, a lot of what we share on the show sometimes is way ahead of the curve, years before people start talking about this stuff. I remember when I wrote the book, The Worry-Free Retirement, and I started talking about this idea of people spending less money as they retire and get into old age. I had some people think I was crazy. They kept worrying about inflation and all that, and I'd say, but the amount of money you're going to spend as you get older, which will be less, will combat the effects of inflation, and now we've seen that play out, and now everybody's talking about the same thing. So wisdom sometimes comes through experience. You have to be out in the trenches to learn some of this stuff to be able to share it with other people. Look what Bogle says about this. He says, put this up full screen. Wisdom too often never comes, and so one ought not to reject it just because it comes late. So what is Bogle talking about? He's talking about what we're talking about right now. Just because all of a sudden somebody's telling you, and kind of debunking the old, never have all your eggs in one basket, which is kind of true. But now all of a sudden it's saying, yeah, but this is not granddad's retirement. We're at a point in time where things are totally different, and you might want to consider getting all those eggs under one roof. That's what we do at Tony Walker Financial, and we're really, really good at it. So let's look at our last 5 items that we need to consider. Okay, last week we talked about being consistent, simplified, management, all that needs to be taken care of. We keep things simple at Tony Walker Financial. Secondly, you got to keep those fees and expenses down. We do our best to do that. Again, with Charles Schwab, we only charge 0.8%. All of our planning services are absolutely free. We're never going to send you an invoice for planning. And of course, many of the annuities we select have no fees. They pay us a one-time commission, but that does not come out of your pocket. Streamlined communication. We have, besides myself, 19 full-time people in-house to work with you. Better tax coordination. We have 2 full-time people on staff that are tax certified. Consistent investment strategy. We talked about this last week. We stay consistent with our 5 strategies. We're not trying to beat the market or kind of trying to make you a gazillionaire. We're trying to protect the money. And then if you want to take some risk with it, we're happy to do that. We can take care of that for you. So let's go to the next 5. So these were our top 10. Number 6, ease of beneficiary and estate administration. Folks, I'm not sure how some of you are going to pull this off. We had 55 death claims last year. We are more than happy to help the widows and widowers and even family members of our clients who pass away. We will help you fill out these forms. We'll make sure that you'll select the right selections, because you got to make selections. Help you with the tax planning. If you are spread out over all over God's creation and you're an executor or beneficiary, good luck. This stuff can be very, very complicated, and I wouldn't recommend that. Big picture game plan to monitor. Put this up full screen. This is our game plan, folks. A lot of times people will come into me and they've got statements and investments all over town, and I'm sitting there saying, well, wait a minute, where's your game plan? What are you going to do to monitor your progress? How are you going to deal with the taxes? What assets are you going to draw from first? Without this written game plan, in my humble opinion, that is impossible. Why? Because we know change is going to come your way. You got to have the game plan to deal with the changes. Access. Well, not only access to your money, which we have that through Charles Schwab, we can get you that money back lickety-split, and in many cases, there's absolutely no cost or transaction fees to get your money back to you. But what about access to the owner of the company? When was the last time somebody with 40 years of experience who owned the company, has seen over 20,000 people in person, is willing to meet with you in person, or that you can call anytime? Probably not going to happen. You also have access to 3 highly trained salaried fiduciaries. Folks, these people aren't on a commission. We don't assign them to people. They are assigned to help any of our clients who need help at that time, and then access to the wonderful staff we have that can help you at any time that you need our assistance. Next, continuity. We haven't changed much over the years. I mean, I've been doing this now 40 years. We've stayed the course. The only thing we've added back in, we started that in 2017, was our investment arm with Charles Schwab. What a lot of our friendly competitors don't understand, I used to use Schwab back in the 90s. Folks, I've been licensed to sell securities and sell annuities since the mid-'80s. I've worked in both of these worlds. I'm one of the few advisors with that much experience in working both with products on Wall Street and products on Main Street. We know how to work those together. In fact, put this up full screen. We call this our split IRA concept, and this has been a game changer because it allows the saver to select as much safety as they want. They can even get some of that beloved and they can have access to Charles Schwab, where we have the liquidity, access to your money, and of course, if you want to take some risk with Schwab, we can handle that for you. Let's just summarize this. What is it we're really talking about? As you go through this second half of life, this thing called retirement, the thing most people worry about is losing sleep over what's going to happen tomorrow. We posed this question earlier. If you went to bed tonight and you woke up tomorrow and your portfolio or assets or 401k was down 20%, how are you going to feel about that? Well, if you're like most of my clients, they're not going to feel real good about it. This is why we call it
Sleep insurance.
So what is sleep insurance? Sleep insurance is having a coordinated game plan through a local retirement planning firm that's going to monitor your progress and keep things on track for you so that you don't have to do this. Folks, we're looking for people who want to quit worrying about this money, want to turn it over to a firm that can handle it for them so, again, they can sleep better at night. So that's you. Why don't you give us an opportunity to talk? We've made this easy. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how easy it is to find out more about our services at Tony Walker Financial. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that little Let's Get Started button, and that information will be confidentially sent to our offices. Or if you like, internet not your thing, just want to give us a call 24/7. The number is 877-499-9255.
One of the things that we pride ourselves here at Tony Walker Financial is helping our clients when they pass away. Their families come to us. It's a very difficult time in their lives. They're trying to work through all the paperwork, all the claim forms. It's very overwhelming. And we help them step by step to get through all of that, making sure they are going to have income coming in when spouses are losing income from a spouse that's passed away. They lose their Social Security. We just make sure that we meet their needs. We get them back on track so that they are comfortable with their situation now. And one of the things that I would recommend for people is a couple of things. Make sure you always get plenty of death certificates. Each company requires one when we submit claims. And then the second thing would be is always make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. If a spouse passes away and they don't update beneficiaries, it becomes a little hectic and a little bit more cumbersome to get those things taken care of.
Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Mr. Greg Ray. Greg, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today.
Nice to be here, Tony. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So what prompted you to contact us at this time? Because you've only been a client, about a year or so. So what prompted you to contact us?
I just happened on Sunday morning to see the Tony Walker Show, quite frankly, Tony. And we bought your book, Live Well, Die Broke, and your story and your principles and your Christian foundation and the balance of, what do you need to have? What do you want to leave to your kids or what have you? Because I got a couple of boys and their families, and then the rest of it, how you want to live your life while you still can live your life, that is. So we stopped in for a visit. We simply came in and asked for a visit, and we got to sit down with you, and that was about a year and a half ago, and we're so glad we did. So.
And again, not to disparage anybody, but going from a large bank to I'd say we're more of a boutique firm, locally owned and everything, service-wise and everything, what have you experienced maybe that's a little different?
The biggest thing is, and probably the most surprising thing is, the presentation of the suite of products that you had. If we wanted to stay in the stock market and play the stock market game, which is a little bit more risky, you had the Charles Schwab product suite, fine and dandy. We could continue doing what we've been doing basically through the bank. The fixed income annuity package, some of the things that you had in long-term care planning, the tax planning, the retirement planning, and making a plan and working the plan, and the responsiveness of all of your staff is just incredible.
Well, we appreciate your business and hopefully many more years to come. So thank you, Greg, for doing business with Tony Walker Financial.
And Tony, best to you. We appreciate all you've done for us.
You're welcome.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Last week on the WorryFree Retirement, we discussed the three personalities of money and an exchange found in Matthew whereby a master gave three different sums of money to three different servants who provided back to the master three different returns on that money. We confirmed that not all of us are hardwired for investments and that fear can sometimes stifle a saver into not doing anything. Of course, we could end up, figuratively speaking, burying it in our backyard, which is not the reaction the master was hoping to receive on the return of his money. Yet, for a saver, I get it because I'm a saver myself. I don't like to work hard for this money, have it in my possession, and only to watch it melt away when the stock market correction comes, which it has on many occasions. That's why we at Tony Walker Financial like to handle our clients' money and diversify that so that there's less risk. Or as the great writer of the book of Ecclesiastes puts it, we like to consider casting our financial bread across the water. Check it out, where he says, beginning in chapter 11, verse 1, where we see that it makes good sense to do so, but when we do the casting, we must not let the things around us that are out of our control create fear. And assuming we divide our portion up and not put everything in one basket, when disaster strikes, hopefully not all of our eggs in one basket get hit with the same disaster. In verse 3, we see that when disaster strikes, it strikes. There's nothing you can do about it. For instance, when the market dropped as much as 50% in 2008, that's where the market lied while it took 4 years for that thing to get back to break even. And that's fine if you're 50 years of age and still working, but what if you're retired during 2008 with all of your money in the stock market? Well, there it lies. And finally, the wisdom to not have all of your eggs in one basket, but to make sure that you have them under one roof reminds us not to try to gauge the winds of the financial world, but rather stay the course. And in my interpretation of this scripture, if you're a saver, keep sowing and trust God with the reaping. So, Christian, do you really want to be worry-free in retirement? Well, remember, it's not all about having all your eggs in one basket as much as it is about having all of those eggs under one roof. And hopefully, those eggs are with someone you can trust to not only keep them safe, but to remind you to use and enjoy those eggs before it's too late. Remember the truth I shared in Live Well, Die Broke. Number one, you really can't take this stuff with you. And the second truth I've learned in working with so many savers is most people make the grave mistake of waiting too long to spend and enjoy their money. So that's you. If you're at a point where you see the wisdom of having all of your eggs under one roof, we need to talk. And we've made this really easy, and best of all, there is absolutely no cost or no obligation to talk with me, Tony Walker, the owner of the company. In fact, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how easy it is for us to speak by phone about your specific situation. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that little Let's Get Started button. That information is confidentially sent to our offices, and my appointment scheduler, Shanna Zachary, will contact you to set up our free phone call. Then, after you and I speak by phone, if it warrants, we're going to meet in person. That's right, you and I, in person, no cost obligation, at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or if the internet's not your thing, just call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed our show today. Next week, we'll be here with a brand new topic, but between now and then, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.